Today we are unpacking whether Lebanon's government can enforce a peace deal with Hezbollah, rejecting terms if US disarmament demands risk tearing Lebanon apart, whether a truce can hold with Israeli buffer zones and strikes still on the table, and whether Iran is using maritime tensions to shield Hezbollah. Plus, who's more boxed in, Washington or Tehran? Well, today joining us is James Marlow, foreign and defense analyst, who will break down the regional and diplomatic angles. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, James.
Thank you.
So, getting right into it, Lebanon's government is fragile and internationally backed, while Hezbollah operates as an armed political force. So, can Beirut realistically force Hezbollah to accept and implement a peace deal?
It's very much like a broken record. I feel this has been going over and over and on and on and on for so many years. Way back in 2006 it was that Israel, it says, was forced to invade Lebanon in order to get rid, or at least push, Hezbollah away from Israel's northern border. And that war went on for some time, of course, as we all know. And then the United Nations came in with a General Security Council resolution, which was not implemented by the United Nations. They then sent peacekeeping forces in, which was supposed to be not just monitoring what was taking place in southern Lebanon, but also keeping Hezbollah fighters away from the southern border with Israel. They didn't do that. They just said many years later their job was to monitor it and write things down. But actually there was video at the time whereby that they were allowing Hezbollah forces literally to go onto the border and set up rocket launchers. And this has been, as I said, ongoing for so many years. We've got to the situation right now where, again, it's just repeating itself, which is what history does on many occasions, that Hezbollah joined up with Hamas, backed by Iran, on October the 7th, 2023. And it was actually supposed to be a coordinated attack into Israel on October the 7th. For some reason, Hezbollah hesitated on that particular day. They didn't coordinate it properly with Hamas. Hamas attacked with Islamic Jihad and the other terror groups from Gaza, but Hezbollah actually stayed back and then started to attack northern Israel, but not the whole of Israel. So that is probably one of the reasons why Israel was not destroyed over those coming months. But nevertheless, we are where we are here today. We have a situation where the Lebanese government recognizes that Israel is not going anywhere. It's on its border. It recognizes that if it did have specific relations with Israel, open borders, and Israelis traveling to Beirut, and then Lebanese traveling to Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, and they could have trade agreements, it would be fantastic. There's just one problem, and that is Hezbollah does not want to allow that, because Hezbollah wants to see Israel completely destroyed, and it is backed, trained and financed by Iran. So, brings us back to your question, what do we do about it? The Americans recognize it's a big problem. Hezbollah today, after all these decades, is not just a terror group. It is actually part of the infrastructure of Lebanon. And that's the difficulty that the Lebanese government and the Lebanese people have today. It's part of the Lebanese army itself. It's part of the intelligence corps. It's part of the officers' corps. And also the Shiites inside of Lebanon support Hezbollah in the south and in Beirut and in other places. So how do you get rid of Hezbollah? You have to keep the pressure on, which is exactly what Israel is going to be doing. But at the same time, I have sympathy for Lebanon. I have sympathy for them because, on the one hand, they have to act as if they're being tough against Israel and say that you can't keep attacking us. But on the other hand, I recognize that Hezbollah are holding a gun to the heads of the Lebanese government and the Lebanese people, and that's unfortunate.
Well, James, Washington is pushing for total Hezbollah disarmament as a condition for stability. But Lebanon's institutions are fragile and militias are embedded in communities. Well, could this demand split the Lebanese armed forces or trigger localized fighting instead of peace? What are we exactly looking at?
The last thing the Lebanese government wants is a civil war, and that is what has been spoken about for some time. This is like a broken record over and over again. We talk about Hezbollah, Lebanon, and of course Israel. The only reason why Israel is taking this action, it says, is to push Hezbollah away from Israel's northern border because it is constantly firing attack drones and also missiles and rockets, and has been doing this since 2001. So again, this is just repeating itself over and over again, the situation. Some people say that history, rather, always repeats itself, and that seems to be the case over here. Hezbollah has embedded itself within Lebanese society. There are Hezbollah fighters, I understand, within the Lebanese government, within the officers' corps, within intelligence. And this is the problem. Hezbollah is not just a terror group backed, financed, and trained by Iran. It is part of Lebanese society. And the Lebanese people now, the Christians, and other ethnic groups inside of Lebanon are fed up with this. They don't want this continuous fighting with Israel. They would much rather have a peace treaty, open borders, tens of thousands of Israelis traveling to Beirut, Lebanese traveling to Tel Aviv, trade agreements. I mean, what could be better for the entire region? Having Lebanon part of the Abraham Accords. There's just one problem with that, and that is Hezbollah says it will not allow that to take place. And it is its objective, its goal is, of course, the same as Iran, which is the destruction of the state of Israel. The Americans are very, very aware of this, and I think a lot of the European governments are aware of this as well. But of course, they keep saying they don't want war. None of us want war. But when you have attacks against your civilians all the time, almost every day, and every other day, Israel is burying somebody brand new inside of Israel because of these attack drones, you have to take action. The problem is that the Lebanese people are feeling this. And they are the ones, their infrastructure inside of Lebanon itself is being hurt, and they've had enough of it. And that's right. They should have enough of it. But there's nothing right now that they can do against Hezbollah.
Right, and you were just talking about Israel. So, Israel is keeping a buffer zone in southern Lebanon and says it can still strike high-value targets. So, does that agreement or arrangement make any of the ceasefire actually meaningful, or will it leave the truce fragile and open to quick collapse? Like, what is your view on that?
Well, I think the Americans have done an exceptionally good job, especially Marco Rubio, who really understands the situation within the Middle East. And of course, Donald Trump is very much pushing for Lebanon to be part of the Abraham Accords. The problem is that when you have a Lebanese government that has a gun pointing to its head, which is saying, Hezbollah, of course, is saying to the Lebanese government, we will not allow you to do this agreement with Israel. We will not allow you to become peaceful buddies and partners with Israel. And that's a real big problem. Hezbollah was originally set up by the Iranian regime as a buffer zone. In other words, as a protection around the Islamic Republic of Iran under the Ayatollah. And they still wish to keep that protection inside of Lebanon itself. But I feel very sorry for the Lebanese people. At one time, it was Assad's forces inside of Lebanon, and it was controlling Assad, of course, from Syria, who was controlling Lebanon. And then, of course, they were working with Hezbollah. Assad, Bashar al-Assad, and his father, Hafez al-Assad, they're, of course, no longer in the picture, but Hezbollah still very much are. And I can understand that the Lebanese government has to speak sometimes tough about Israeli actions within their own country. That makes sense. A lot of the infrastructure is being destroyed inside of Lebanon itself. But at the same time, I also recognize that you have to protect Israeli citizens and also protect Lebanese citizens. The Christian population, the majority of them do not want Hezbollah in this mode whatsoever. The Shiites do support Hezbollah. The Shiites are in the south and also in neighborhoods, the Dahiya neighborhood in Beirut. And that's the reason why Israel has hit that neighborhood several times. But of course, Beirut is the capital of Lebanon. And when you have a foreign power hitting, bombing part of that capital, I mean, that doesn't look very good for the rest of the world. But Hezbollah is one of the toughest armies in the world, and it's very, very difficult to deal with this situation.
Correct. We just covered Washington. We just went to Israel. Now from Iran, Iran has signaled ties between the Lebanon front and threats to shipping in the Strait of Hormuz, which we have already hearing. Is Iran deliberately using global energy security fears to deter action against Hezbollah, or is this linking these crises overplayed?
The answer to that, I believe, yes. I mean, Iran will use any tactics it can whatsoever to keep its regime, I would say its murderous regime, in power, of course. I mean, anywhere between 30 to 45,000, possibly more, of the Iranian people killed on the streets back in January, and that's just in January alone. Since the internet has come back on inside of Iran, we are seeing pictures come out. We are seeing troops down the streets, Iranian regime troops down the streets, who are still opening fire on those demonstrations. That video is coming out, and you're seeing it on X and other online platforms as well. This is obviously very disturbing, but it shouldn't be very surprising because the Iranian regime will stay in power no matter what. I think eventually it's going to fall, but it's obviously going to take some time to fall. And the Americans, because they have an election coming up, of course, they want to steer very, very, very carefully because, as Donald Trump has said to Bibi Netanyahu, if the Democrats win the House and the Senate in November, that's not going to be very good for you meaning Israel, because the Democrats perhaps are moving towards not just a center-left position, but also maybe a far left position towards socialism. They're working out how to decide. So that's obviously not going to be very favorable towards the state of Israel and this current government.
Right, and just to sum up everything, with huge military costs, sanctions, and shifting Iranian leadership, who has less room to maneuver? Is it Washington stretched globally, or Tehran squeezed economically and politically? And how do domestic politics shape each side's red lines?
Well, that's quite a good question, actually, because I think the Iranians are learning very much so from the word patience. They've sat this out for 20 years plus with regard to nuclear weapons. I have no doubt, absolutely no doubt, that the Iranians were planning to get nuclear weapons, and I think that they were very, very, very close before the Americans and the Israelis took this action last summer, I believe it was. And so I do believe that the Iranians have learned to play this waiting game and this long game, and they could be doing the same thing right now because, of course, there's no real democracy with inside Iran what's right now, and there hasn't been since 1979, even beforehand, because, of course, that was a coup. But nevertheless, inside of Iran, they know that Donald Trump only has another 2 years maximum in power, and then the Democrats could take over. And they could be saying to themselves, in fact, they are saying to themselves, well, you know what? We're going to be here in 2 years. We're going to be here in 5 years. We're going to be here in 10 years. So we can wait this out. We can actually start again building our international ballistics program, our ballistics program for rockets, which of course we know now does reach Europe, the European cities, Rome, Berlin, Paris, and even London. So why are they still building these international intercontinental ballistic missiles? They're building them so they could reach New York and Washington, D.C. The Americans are aware of this. But again, they have got an election coming up. And also just think as well that Donald Trump has not really explained to the American people exactly what the objective is in the Middle East and against Iran. And I think that's a problem. He needs to get out to the American people and explain what our goal is, who Iran is, what they're capable of, and we have to try and stop it to preserve world peace. And I don't think on that particular issue he's done such a good job.
Right. Clearly, this is a fast-moving situation with significant implications, well, not just for Lebanon and Israel, but for the broader region and global markets as well. But thank you so much, James Marlow, for joining us today and giving your insights on the same.
Thank you very much.